In today's video, we will discuss on a topic to find out what defines a great English teacher in Quebec compared to a regular teacher. This project was created by Marc-Antoine for the course Culture Anglaise et Littérature 2 at the Cégep of Saint-Hyacinthe. In today's video, we will discuss on a topic to find out what defines a great English teacher in Quebec compared to a regular teacher. This project was created by Marc-Antoine for the course Culture Anglaise et Littérature 2 at the Cégep of Saint-Hyacinthe. Throughout the province of Quebec, it is commonly known that French is the primary language. However, everywhere you go, apart from the island of Montreal, Quebecers have the tendency to poorly speak English. Many believe that this phenomenon is due to the preservation of the French culture, also known as Bill 101. The government applied this bill to the population because they were afraid of losing their French language as the primary language in Quebec. Anyhow, they still teach English in schools all over the province, but it isn't as strictly evaluated as in French classes. On the other hand, if and only during primary and secondary school, teachers would be able to know how to help students develop their knowledge in the English culture, this may prevent the fluctuation level in pronunciation as well as the understanding of English. Many do not know, but being a teacher is one of the toughest jobs out there. They must teach groups of kids from 15 of them to 35. All of these kids have different interests, different needs, and some just don't really care. It is the responsibility of the teacher to ensure the safety of their learning as well as the students passing the classes the teachers are currently teaching. Consequently, it is the great ones who will leave a mark on the teaching field. In other words, someone who is passionate by the subject they are teaching, the more likely the students are going to be interested as well in the learning of that subject. For an example, some teachers who end up teaching English in secondary schools aren't necessarily fascinated by the English culture. In university, teaching English, or the class to teach English, is normally the lowest one to be able to be accepted in. So he takes the job because that is his only chance to get a good paycheck. Therefore, he doesn't really care about what he teaches if he gets paid to do so. On the other hand, teachers who love teaching say that it gives them the opportunity to give his or her knowledge to the generations to come, because the next generation is the most important one there is. The next principle which defines a great teacher is believing in his or her students. A teacher is ready to do anything for its students to be able to succeed. Is not only important for the teacher, but important for the child's self-esteem as well as its development. Making students participate in activities or asking them questions can be useful for knowing if they're understanding the theory or if they're completely off track. By the term off track, I mean that they have no clue what they just learned. Yet again, teachers who are only teaching for the money will do the least amount of work possible that he is obligated to do. In other words, he will give the theory to students and then give some students some exercises to complete during class. If that's not completed, well, he's going to ask the kids or the students to do it for homework for next class so they can correct it. A couple weeks later, or maybe the same week, he has the exam, and then they do that on. And that's all. He hopes that no students ask him questions, and if that situation occurs, he answers as simply as possible because that's not his interest. The last main way to differentiate a great teacher from a normal one is by focusing on each of the students' personal needs. Today, everyone is concerned about performances. Meanwhile, as mentioned earlier, people have different needs or personal problems that interfere with schooling at a young age. This is where it is important to acknowledge that a great teacher will take the time with these students who demand the extra effort it takes for them to succeed. An article featured in the Washington Post by Valerie Strauss announces, on the other hand, the engagement that a teacher did any other teacher that most teachers simply hand out the assignment wouldn't do in our society. And he would probably not mention anything else on the subject and wait for the students on their own time in terms of peer and ask questions or ask the teacher learned all year was Catherine's on how to make of having 4 individual research conferences with each student for one research paper. This means that Catherine took lots of her time with each of her students one by one in her language arts class to concentrate on each and every one's problem. At the end of the term, it turned out that 16 over 23 students passed the final AP English Literature exam. This exam is known to be one of the hardest exams. The journalist also mentioned that she had a friendly relationship with each student. It would be very rare to see this situation happen. The last main way to differentiate a great teacher from a normal one is by focusing on each of the student's personal needs. Today, on the other hand, a normal teacher or any other teacher would just simply hand out the assignment, explain it, and he would probably not mention anything else on the subject and wait for the students on their own time to come and ask questions or ask the teacher help on how to make the paper or research better. In conclusion, there are 3 main ways to identify and differentiate a great teacher from a normal teacher. The first reason is by figuring out if the teacher is interested by the subject he is teaching. It is possible to identify this by looking at the level of importance he gives to his class. Was it the first choice as a teaching career for the subject, or was it his last? Also, the second method to figure out if a teacher is a great one can be found by looking at if he believes in the student's academic progress. It can be found by seeing if the teacher asks questions after he explains the theory or by making the students participate in class. This is normally done to ensure the students comprehend the theory. Finally, a teacher who focuses on the special needs of each student is the straight definition of a great teacher. He is willing to do all for the students to succeed. He even goes the extra mile for them to succeed. Therefore, I believe that if each English teacher, or even all teachers, do this in the province of Quebec, by following these steps, the level of English speakers in Quebec, not only would they speak more fluently and understand more, but they will have an easier time to get a job later in life because they will understand more.